Civilization 6 stands apart from the other entries in the legendary strategy series. It takes things out into the world by unpacking cities, wonders, and armies. It makes you consider humanity's relationship with the planet it inhabits. In Civilization 6 Gathering Storm, the planet is not a passive participant. In this game, the planet itself is as important as any player in the game. By adding a smattering of new civilizations to play as and tons of new features, Gathering Storm makes Civilization 6 feel like a more complete game. Rebalanced factions, new paths to victory, new challenges to consider, and most important, a brand new endgame really makes this expansion feel like a new game. Strategies that once worked now need to be completely reimagined. The game that I've spent hundreds of hours playing just refreshed itself, and I plan to play it for 1,000 more. Let's get into what makes Gathering Storm so fresh and why it works so well. Right from the get-go, you will notice that some things are different. You may start next to an active volcano, a river might flood, a hurricane or blizzard might push your development in unexpected directions. No longer is the planet simply a playground for you to explore, expand, and exploit. Now you'll have to consider the risks and rewards. A volcano creates fertile soil, better for farming, but can easily destroy improvements or even reduce a city's population. A hurricane can damage or kill any troops who walk through it, but drive your enemies into a storm during a war, and you can turn the tide in your favor. Some risks are longer term. When you first select a settler, you will notice new icons indicating where sea levels can eventually rise. Gathering Storm tracks pollution, climate change, global warming, ice caps melting, and sea levels rising. These risks ask a very different sort of question. Will you be able to come up with the right kind of technology to mitigate these risks? With seawalls or carbon scrubbing, is it possible your cities and districts won't be swallowed by the rising seas? Or maybe you can go green and use the New World Congress to force other nations to do the same. Or you can position cities inland, build a ton of coal-powered plants, and cackle like Lex Luthor as the rest of the world sinks into the ocean. With new terrain features to consider, there are also new ways to interact with your environment. The first and most dramatic is a dam, which can be used to protect a city from flooding. Dams are also a great source of clean electricity, but there is only one dam permitted per river. If you share access to a river with another civ, you've got another building to race towards. You will also be able to build tunnels and canals, which can greatly change mobility options. I've used the sudden construction of tunnels to quickly move soldiers around an invading army, greatly changing the tactical warfare side of the game. I've also used canals to move the Navy into a better position to explore the world, giving myself a ton of Golden Age points, and using the features from the last expansion pack, Rise and Fall, in new ways. The World Congress is extremely difficult to wrap your head around. It involves multiple votes for multiple contingencies. Sometimes your vote for one thing can contribute to a whole different category, and it'll take a little while before you master the intricacies. For example, you can vote for soldiers to be more expensive or cheaper to make, but with those categories, you also have to vote for whether or not they are cheaper to build with construction or purchase with gold. Those votes are counted together and then against each other with the category. See, it's a little tricky. The World Congress is probably the new feature that needs the most retooling. At the moment, possible votes are chosen from a narrow set of options based on the era. The best use of the Congress so far is a completely revamped emergency system that has greater risks and rewards and gives you more control over Rise and Fall's least compelling new feature. Warfare as a whole has been completely revamped with a system of grievances replacing the old warmonger score, and leading to interesting and new complex relationships within the Congress. After the Zulu lost a bunch of their coastal cities to hurricanes, I contributed a ton of money towards their rebuilding. Not only did this give me bonuses towards a victory, the Zulu were forever my grateful allies. Diplomatic victory is back, and it's a good one. At first, your chances to earn diplomatic victory points is rare. Participating in emergencies is a good way, and later you can get them from winning global events like the World Fair or the Olympic Games. In later eras though, you can use the World Congress to nominate yourself for victory points, and start scoring them every session. You vote for these points with a new consumable resource called Favor. Favor works a little bit like gold. You can earn some every turn and hold on to it to sway the World Congress, or you can just trade it. Favor is generated by doing peaceful diplomatic things. Controlling city-states gets you favor, and so does forming alliances. This is awesome because it gives a new dimension to peaceful strategies, or a new incentive to be careful and devious with your warfare. The most subtle of the new changes comes in consumable resources. It used to be you had access to strategic resources or you didn't. Now you fill up a limited bank of them like in a real-time strategy game. At first, I didn't think I'd like this change, but soon it became my favorite rebalance. It makes strategic resources more interesting, and preventing other civs from having them is a hugely important strategy. Initially, you will spend resources like iron and horses to build special units, but eventually you will need to collect enough coal or oil a turn to support all your buildings and units that need it. This is a simple economic question. If you need 8 oil per turn, you best be collecting more than 8 oil, or you will run out. But you can also trade resources away in deals. A frugal trader can get away with buying what they need without actually having it within their borders. Electricity is pretty simple, but very tempting. The main dynamic exists between the desire to get bonuses and the desire to not pollute. There are no penalties for not getting electricity, but those bonuses are tempting. We're talking the difference between giving a building plus 5 science per turn and plus 13 science per turn, with other bonuses that can grow exponentially, giving you yet another brutal risk-reward choice. Of course, a new expansion means new civs and new wonders. I was shocked to learn how much I love Sweden, who takes advantage of the new systems very well. The Ottomans are fun too, using the governor system from Rise and Fall to assist them in siege warfare. We at COG are thrilled that Canada has finally made it into a civ game, and they are deceptively strong. Besides getting the most out of snow and tundra tiles, Canada is immune to surprise attacks and can focus on peaceful building. But what really excites me is how all the new changes breathe life into the existing civs. Some of these changes are weird and obvious. Japan now has a whole new ability to resist hurricanes. Other civs are mostly the same, but now contend with the new systems. Persia was all about sneak attacks and reducing their warmonger penalties, but there are no more warmonger penalties, so they've been slightly changed to reflect the new grievance system. The balance is good, and it makes them feel fresh to play. Norway, often lamented as the weakest civ in the game, received a small bonus as pillaging has been made more viable. I haven't played every single existing civ, but I'm already noticing new dynamics. Finally, Gathering Storm adds a whole new era, and this changes the late game profoundly, which is always the most important aspect of a civ expansion pack. No longer can you set up your civilization like a perfectly made watch and click end turn until victory. The technology and culture trees now unlock a new section, one that is totally random. This might mean a lot of military technologies or a lot of new civics cards for your government. This element of unpredictability is great, and it arrives precisely when it needs to. You don't always get what you want, but sometimes you might find what you need. There are also little changes to victories. The science victory takes longer and is less straightforward, now requiring that you explore and settle an exoplanet. The culture victory has been given new soldiers, rock bands. These units can go on tour in foreign civs, granting you a ton more tourism and making the cultural victory more of an active venture. That embodies the spirit of Gathering Storm. It's more active, there are more choices to make, and there are more consequences to worry about. Things that seem simple in one moment can spiral out to affect the game in startling ways. Civilization has always been a board game too complicated to play with cardboard and plastic pieces. Gathering Storm takes that complexity to new levels of simulation, but it is so well presented you never feel overwhelmed. I'm an easy mark for a new civilization, but I have no fear in saying that Gathering Storm is one of the most creative and significant expansions a civilization game has ever received.